All right, so welcome, Aquaba students. So there are a couple of areas we're going to look at. Um, Nigeria and Benin. Benin we'll look at mostly for the sculpt works, the sculpting works. As a matter of fact, a lot of the stuff in this particular section in Nigeria and Benin is a lot of it, most of it is sculpture. There are some things that are pieces that affix to the head, like hats. And we'll talk about it's more than a hat, that we'll go into what it is. It's a headpiece. But most of this is going to be concerning sculptures and um, things that might be referred to as artifacts. So we'll look mostly at Nigeria. And we will also look at Benin. Benin needs to be referenced because of what happens, especially with the casting process. And the things that are more recent, meaning like from the 1100s, the 1400s. Recent, and I say that that is recent because we're going to be going way back. Um, as far as what can be dated, you know what I mean? Because always understand, just like when we were in ancient Kemet, um, a lot of the stuff that was beautiful for us to look at and is thousands upon thousands of years old, even going into the before the Common Era, the BCE, that this is something that didn't just pop up. It was something that was connected to what people already understood and perceptions and philosophies that were attached to their society prior to that was fully developed before something like a pyramid could be erected or something like that. So the same is true of this artwork as well. We're going to be looking at Nigeria, and we're going to be looking at Benin, and we're going to look at things that have been found, and some will date back, I think, to the 8th century AD, or Common Era is what it's referred to now, CE, Common Era. So it'll date to that they can know. But again, this is going to be the result of philosophies, systems, and observations that have been in place for centuries. Okay? All right, so let's move forward. Let's go ahead. And the first region we are going to look at is the Nok. So Nok culture is in this particular region. Now it's in Nigeria, and notice that I put this little region here. And I just kind of wanted to give you a general idea of where it was. You know, I may be missing it here or there, so don't get real specific with it. But it's the general region here. So almost at the center of Nigeria. And what happened, there was a gentleman who found these sculptures, and he didn't expect to find it, but then he was digging a well, and then this stuff ended up popping up, and then he was like, oh wow, and he found it. And then as far as the Western world, us here in the West being aware of it, it was mostly due to a British guy by the last name of Shaw. And so that's pretty much how we in the West know a lot about it, okay? Because, you know, I always emphasize that just because it was written down and discovered or influenced by someone who was European doesn't mean that the people within the region were not aware of what their own traditions were and their own systems, and that they even had all of these beautiful items. It's just that the value of everyday life is not necessarily in the object. So therefore, not given as much credence as it would be in European society, which very much values the object. And so it makes sense that it would be a more intensive sort of focus that a British person would bring to that. Okay. So with that being said, me see, did I miss anything? Okay, so here we are. So here is an example of the sort of things that were found. It was mostly terracotta, from what I understand. I am not aware that there was any metal that was found that was dated from this particular time period. And so it was found around 1943. It is said to be associated, now Nok, let me emphasize this, Nok is the region in it of itself. NOK, that's what it's currently called. The culture that this very old stuff belongs to is maybe not necessarily called Nok, but so we in the West are not sure. I'm not sure if someone over there is sure, maybe an old story 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 keeper, culture maintenance, that kind of person. They might really know and be able to transfer that information over to us in terms of who these people were and about what time they lived and all of that. But anyway, so just to let you know, it's called Nok not because the culture itself was named Nok, but because of the region where it was found. And that would be the modern term that got associated with this particular region, which is highlighted here when you see the overall area of Nigeria. Okay, all right, so here's a Nok terracotta head. This particular one, and this is showing you the head specifically. We're going to look at a few slides that also is going to have the body attached to it. And when people look at these, you know, they think, well, it's so simplified, it's not very naturalistic, but that is intentional. The intentionality of it being represented like this is because you want to emphasize the head, you want to emphasize the intelligence, you want to emphasize people taking their time to think about concepts and the way of interacting with themselves, because they're thinking before they act. Okay, so with themselves and then with others around them in community. So that's one of the reasons why the head is emphasized in this particular way. And then we can see here where this is also found in that general region, apparently around 1943. And it's very stylized, you know, it's stylized in terms of how it's represented. People definitely, in general, you know, when they're well formed, they're not going to have a head this big. They're not going to have arms that small. And, you know, legs won't be shaped exactly like this and have that fluidity to them. However, it is symbolic. It is symbolic, I am sure, of fluidity. Now, you could check with the people in the region, but how important the fluidity is, and then also reflection and thought in terms of that relating to how one interacts with one another. And now, in terms of who it is that's reflecting, that becomes rather clear. Maybe it's clear here, but for me, it's not as clear. It's a male. That part is clear. But how important this person is not really clear to me. But it's terracotta made out of clay that has not necessarily been glazed. I don't see anything on there that looks like a sheen. So this is just clay that's been shaped and formed into an art piece and then fired in the kiln, okay? It's still definitely an art piece and not any less valuable than something that has been glazed, in a Western sense being valuable. But here, we just see, we have more of a chance to see the full body. So then we can get a sense of the importance of this person, the very meticulous way that the hair is braided and styled, the intricacy that's happening here on the rungs of jewelry around the neck, and the rungs, if you notice, around the arm as well. Here. Yeah, so this is definitely a person that's of importance, and it's just important for us to know that that's what we're looking at. This particular view, it's the same image, but it's just a different view. And then also what you can't see here, you start to see some semblance of it, but you can't really see it, but Here, there's some sort of container that is not sure what it's for. If you ask me what it's for, I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, the intricate way that this hair is hair, this is obviously a haircut. Most men on the planet do not have a hairline that straight. So more than likely shaven to take on a very specific sort of shape. And then interesting what's happened with the hair too, in terms of its meticulousness and the coils and the parts and everything. And then this looks like an elder, feels very much like an elder to me. Whether or not it is, I don't have the text that goes along with this image, but man, does it feel like an elder to me. And elders in most traditional African societies, and I don't think that this is one that you have in your notes. Trying to see. No, this is not one that you have in your notes, but it's okay. It's an extra example for you to get familiar with the kind of knock imagery that I'm sharing with you. And so, yeah, definitely an elder. Now, what I didn't finish saying, but elders are always valued because of the years that they've lived on the planet and the information that they have that becomes very valuable to how one learns to conduct themselves because they've seen it for so many decades. So they have insight based on, and assumed to have the insight based on how long they've lived. So this is what it looks like we're looking at here. And not only is he a man of importance again, but he's an elder of importance, okay? A lot of these pieces, I don't think I have an image. No, I don't. I did have an image, but I took it out because I was trying to shorten this particular section. So, but what I wanted to emphasize about the construction of these is a lot of them were done in coils. And when people who were analyzing these pieces, they went and they x-rayed them, they can see right through the piece. And because it's made out of organic material, it kind of, you can x-ray it fairly easily and see right into it. And what they found is that there were coils that were on top of each other, especially to build the body. Build the arms, I think they were in fact a coil, but it was shaped down, but the body was made out of coils. And sometimes they could see it in the legs too. Okay. So that is an interesting way of deciding that they wanted to construct the work in terms of it being made out of coils. And there's always different approaches that artists have with these things that they create. In the past and now, artists always have a different approach for however it is that's convenient for them to create things. Now, we're looking at a knock female figure. So this is a female figure we're looking at. Notice her breasts there. And then we also see that she is a woman of importance. I'm not sure what happened to her arms, but it's obvious that she's a woman of importance based on how well she is treated with her ornate objects, including her neck piece, excuse me, and the lovely pieces that are have been fabricated and then placed around her waist area or over her pelvic area. Okay. Now, this piece I showed you with an emphasis on, I think that this is a female also. This particular piece I showed you, and what you'll notice, and I'm going back to make sure, yeah, most of the knock pieces that I'm showing you, I can't say because I haven't seen all of them. There were a ton that were found. But the pieces that I'm showing you, most of them have a closed mouth. This particular piece has an open mouth. That means that there's something that perhaps this particular piece embodies that is in reference to a particular individual that they had something important to communicate, okay? And that they are communicating. Also, if you know, when you're looking at this work, and of course, when you take the exam, one thing I want you, excuse me, to really notice is how the eyes are done. You know, that sort of upside down triangle, you know, the little angle over the eye. It's very distinct in terms of how that's done. The holds to emphasize the nostrils in terms of breathing. I mean, because they could have just done that and just like still had a little slab of clay, but it's like they wanted to really open up the nostrils. Here, in the nostrils are broader here, but here they still opened up. Here they opened up, you know. Here they're open again, and the same with the eyes. The mouth is the only thing that seems to be a little bit different in terms of, well, it's a lot different in terms of this one being open. And so this is just a close-up so that you can get a sense of the knock. So this is the knock, and I wanted to leave that with you. I wanted you to be sure to understand that that's what they are about. And I'm going to pause the recording. I may end up stopping it here. Let's see. Yeah, so I think I will stop it here. And then, so this will be part one of the Nigerian Benin, okay? And then the next one will be part two.